What's up, everyone? Dustin Davis here, your source for all things Miami Dolphins. Miami's season has already veered off course. Expectations crumbled early, and now a critical injury has made the path back to playoff relevance even steeper. The Dolphins' front office faces mounting pressure as losses pile up and questions about direction grow louder. If the wins don't come soon, the organization may need to make difficult choices that prioritize tomorrow over today. What happens next will reveal whether leadership believes in salvaging this campaign or building towards something different. Either way, the clock is ticking on decisions that could define the franchise for years to come. Let's check out all the details from the last few hours. But first, can I ask you a quick favor? If you're enjoying the content, just hit that like button. It helps us more than you think. Thank you so much. The first name generating serious trade buzz might surprise you, and the reasoning behind it reveals just how dire Miami's situation has become. Very little has worked in Miami's favor through the opening stretch. The team stumbled to a 1-5 record that immediately strained any realistic postseason ambitions, and now the loss of a key contributor for the remainder of the year has made the climb even more daunting. Grier and McDaniel entered this season facing considerable expectations, and both now find themselves under heavy scrutiny. Should the team's trajectory fail to improve rapidly, Miami may adopt the strategy many struggling franchises eventually embrace, becoming sellers when the trade deadline arrives. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN highlighted Jaylen Waddle as someone opposing teams might inquire about should Miami's losing streak persist, though he noted Miami would probably hesitate to part with the receiver given Tyreek Hill's season-ending absence. The 3-year, $84 million extension Waddle signed in May 2024 locks him in through 2028, creating a rare scenario where proven performance meets long-term contractual security. Waddle is 26 years old and was selected 6th overall in his draft class. His early NFL tenure included 3 straight campaigns exceeding 1,000 receiving yards, and his current statistics, 23 catches for 295 yards and 3 touchdowns, don't fully reflect his continuing explosiveness. Coming off a season-best 110-yard outing, he's tracking toward approximately 1,003 receiving yards, which would mark yet another 1,000-yard receiving season and strengthen his appeal on the trade market. If Miami cannot assemble a winning streak before the trade window shuts following Week 9, organizations seeking receiver help will almost certainly reach out. Waddle's combination of speed, precise route running, and manageable contract would appeal to contenders aiming to upgrade their aerial attack without creating long-term salary complications. Moving Waddle would immediately yield draft picks and cap relief, valuable resources if the franchise shifts toward rebuilding. However, with Hill unavailable, trading Waddle would deplete receiver depth and potentially weaken the offense in the near term. That internal tension positions Waddle as both a logical trade candidate and a sensitive roster decision that will attract substantial interest if Miami's slide extends. Meanwhile, another player drafted to be part of the future finds himself on the outside looking in, and his days in South Florida may be numbered. A victory over the New York Jets in Week 4 failed to change the larger narrative. Miami's 2025 campaign has already collapsed. Now 1-5, talk of moving on from McDaniel and initiating a full organizational reset has escalated from quiet speculation to widespread discussion among supporters and media voices. The trade deadline arrives in early November, yet Miami's bye week doesn't occur until approximately 3 weeks afterwards in Week 2012, creating an awkward timeline for teams typically using that break to assess and execute significant roster transactions. Nevertheless, the Dolphins possess multiple players whose current value could be converted into future resources. Running back Jaylen Wright, selected in the 4th round during 2024, was brought in to eventually replace Raheem Mostert and add to Miami's collection of speed at the position. Across 2 NFL seasons, Wright has struggled to establish himself in the regular rotation, and his usage this year has been especially sparse. Ollie Gordon has taken over the backup role, while Wright has been inactive for 3 of Miami's first 5 contests, suggesting his standing within the organization has declined. Sayer Bettinger of Spin Zone placed Wright on the Week 6 trade block, observing that several teams are dealing with running back injuries and might view Wright as immediate depth. He identified the Kansas City Chiefs, Los Angeles Chargers, and Arizona Cardinals as potential landing spots. While Miami might prefer shipping Wright to an NFC destination such as Arizona, the pragmatic approach would involve accepting the strongest available offer regardless of conference alignment. The most probable return would be a late day 3 selection, though a contender facing urgent depth needs could provide more. For an organization leaning toward reconstruction, converting underutilized assets into draft capital makes practical sense. A modest pick acquired now could be redirected toward addressing more significant roster deficiencies, like the offensive line or secondary. And clearing a roster spot creates flexibility for younger personnel who might better align with the new direction. Supporters anticipated more from Wright following an encouraging rookie campaign, yet the production hasn't followed. If Miami plans to pivot quickly and assemble a competitive roster for upcoming seasons, exchanging Wright for draft compensation represents a sound strategic move.
A fresh report suggests the Dolphins could look to their defensive strength as a source of trade capital, with one former first-rounder drawing attention. Miami's sluggish start has intensified difficult questions about roster philosophy, and one of the roster's few strengths, the defensive front, has suddenly become a potential trade asset. Alex Kay of Bleacher Report recently proposed an intriguing in-division concept: ship Jaelan Phillips to the winless New York Jets in exchange for a 2026 fourth-round pick. The reasoning is direct. Miami would monetize depth at a premium position, while the Jets would acquire a high-ceiling athlete capable of reviving a stagnant pass rush. Kay acknowledged the trade-off, noting, "Phillips may cost more than a late-round pick swap, but his upside is worth it," recognizing the familiar balance between potential and availability. Phillips is playing under his fifth-year option, an uncommon situation for many former first-round edge rushers, and his recent injury record complicates his market value. After producing 6.5 sacks across his first 8 games during a breakout campaign, he suffered a torn Achilles that ended that season. The next year, he tore his ACL in Week 4 of 2024. Those injuries force acquiring teams to demand thorough medical evaluations and increase the importance of draft compensation to offset durability concerns. A fourth-round pick would represent modest compensation for a player who, when healthy, can influence games at a premium position. Contenders struggling with pass rush deficiencies might overpay, but Miami would probably seek at least mid-round value given Phillips' ceiling. The equation shifts further if the Dolphins commit to rebuilding. Transforming proven edge depth into draft assets aligns more cleanly with that approach than retaining veterans for a short-term playoff push. Ultimately, the choice will reflect the franchise's timeline and leadership's willingness to embrace change. If Miami opts to accelerate a teardown and reload through the draft, trading an edge defender like Phillips for selections makes strategic sense. If leadership continues to believe a turnaround remains achievable under current coaching, keeping veteran pass rush options could stabilize the roster. Regardless, Phillips' name will likely be among the most closely monitored as the trade window nears. In a more unconventional twist, speculation has emerged about a potential move that wouldn't involve trading players at all, but rather leadership itself. Alex Kay of Bleacher Report floated the notion of Miami pursuing Bruce Arians, the former Buccaneers head coach currently working within Tampa Bay's front office, as a potential cultural overhaul. Kay contends that Arians' reputation as a galvanizing leader and his Super Bowl credentials, he guided Tampa Bay to the championship in the 2020 season, could reestablish structure and energy. Despite Arians' last coaching in 2022 and presently serving as a senior consultant, his name carries the kind of credibility that fuels speculation about bold fixes. Arians envisions Miami trading a mid-round selection, a fourth-rounder in his hypothetical, to obtain Arians' rights from Tampa Bay's front office. While the mechanics of transferring an active or consulting coach mid-season would be unusual and involve complex legal and contractual issues, Kay suggests a sufficiently compelling proposal could persuade both Tampa Bay and Arians to entertain such an arrangement. Arians' head coaching record includes an 80-48-1 mark, 6 playoff victories, and 2 NFL Coach of the Year awards, plus a Super Bowl staff experience with Pittsburgh. That resume supports the argument that he could deliver immediate leadership, which advocates believe might prove more consequential than mid-season roster additions. Even if the Dolphins choose not to target Arians specifically, the organization could still pursue a coaching change. Mike McDaniel has faced pressure following a disappointing 2024 and a rough start this season. Ownership might choose an interim promotion or a more conventional mid-season replacement rather than an unprecedented coach-for-picks transaction. Still, the Arians concept underscores the urgency some observers perceive.
Whether Miami explores a high-profile coaching acquisition or selects more incremental adjustments, how the organization handles leadership will signal its priorities. Pursuing a coach of Arians' caliber would be bold and risky, but for a franchise struggling to extract performance from a talented roster, high-risk decisions are the kinds of moves that could either rescue a season or accelerate a reset. On the flip side, one widely discussed trade target may not be the solution Miami needs, despite what the headlines suggest. The Dolphins should exercise caution when considering trades for starters ahead of the deadline. The real requirement is depth, not a complete overhaul. Following Tyreek Hill's season-ending injury, the impulse to pursue a headline replacement is natural, but the wiser course involves reinforcing depth and maintaining flexibility for a more comprehensive rebuild. This becomes especially critical given uncertainties surrounding both the roster and coaching staff. The Pro Football Sports Network and other outlets have mentioned Saints wideout Chris Olave as a plausible target. The central question is whether acquiring Olave would meaningfully enhance the Dolphins' prospects this season or simply disguise deeper structural problems requiring attention. Olave's background is compelling. A former first-round pick who launched his NFL career with back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, he continues to offer speed, polished route running, and contested catch skills. In 2024, he was restricted to 400 receiving yards after missing 9 contests. Through 4 games this season, he's accumulated 185 yards and a touchdown. On the surface, Olave would restore some of the vertical dimension Miami lost when Hill exited and would generate more favorable matchups for Tua Tagovailoa. However, roster compatibility and contract realities complicate the concept. Olave is finishing his rookie contract, and the Saints exercised his 5th-year option, meaning any acquiring club would shoulder a roughly $16.8 million obligation if they retained him through next season. That figure, though considerably below Hill's deal, still demands a meaningful short-term investment, and likely an extension if Miami desired continuity beyond this year. A mid-season trade therefore introduces financial and roster implications warranting careful evaluation. Adding to the calculation is the ambiguity surrounding general manager Chris Grier. Ongoing conversation about his future and the possibility of Marvin Allen taking on expanded responsibilities suggests the front office may favor preserving assets over accelerating a win-now approach. Trading premium draft capital or cap space for a single offensive starter could restrict flexibility for a new regime or a broader reconstruction. A trade for Chris Olave or any other starter would represent a reactive solution risking limited upside and significant long-term cost. Until Miami clarifies its strategic direction, whether buying now, selling assets, or transitioning leadership, the most responsible path involves conserving draft capital and addressing immediate depth requirements rather than pursuing a short-term fix. Do you agree that trading for Chris Olave would be a mistake, or do you think Miami needs to take a swing on a proven receiver right now? Should the Dolphins focus on depth and draft picks, or go all in to try and save this season? We want to hear your perspective. Let us know in the comments what move you'd make if you're calling the shots. Before you go, hit that like and subscribe button. Be part of our community and stay updated. Let's keep Dolphins strong together. Catch you in the next one.